under the altar.
How is it going, Herr? Anonymous, please. Change all names as you wish. My name is Raoul. Some friends and I had decided, like many other nights, to get together in an old bar downtown. It was our usual meeting place. The atmosphere there is relaxed, dim lighting, background music, and the occasional sound of bottles clinking. It was me, Chewy, Memo, and David, the usual guys. Over the years, we have developed a sort of ritual. We sit at the same table in the back, order a round, and start chatting about the week. That night, like many others, between jokes and banter, the subject of paranormal stories and legends came up. Everyone had their own anecdote to scare or amuse the rest. I have always been the skeptic of the group, but that night, David's story left me cold. David and I have always been close. We've shared everything from parties to childhood secrets, but I had never heard what he told me that night. He took a deep drink and began his tale. He talked about an uncle of his, someone we always knew was involved in complicated affairs, but we never imagined just how much. According to David, he was related to organized crime, but he wasn't just a messenger or anything like that. He was more or less a heavy hitter. He says that one day they called his mother, Doña Graciela, very scared. It was his aunt who was telling her that her brother had been found dead in an old warehouse where drugs were kept. David's mother had been waiting for this moment. She knew that one day the army or some rival gang was going to take his life, but she definitely did not expect what she was about to hear. The aunt said that it was not just any death. There were no bullets or signs of torture. He was simply found lying there, with his eyes open and an expression of frozen terror on his face, as if something had terrified him to death. What made the story even more disturbing was where exactly he was. Supposedly, he was found underneath a small makeshift-looking altar that was in the same warehouse, and on top of it was a figure that was possibly being prayed to. Incredible as it may seem, it was neither a virgin nor a saint. It was something different, something disturbing. A clay figure with a strange appearance, and one of its main distinguishing features was that it had horns. This made me think of the many things that the military must see and experience. It doesn't surprise me that many of them end up as people without compassion or fear, not to mention the criminals. As I walked home, I couldn't get the image of that horned figure out of my mind. What had David's uncle really seen that night in the bodega? Was it simply the result of his shady business dealings, or was there something else, something dark and unknown? Anyway, that's the end of the story. It was quite short compared to the others you upload, but I wanted to send it anyway.
Ancestors and curses.
Hi, Herr. This story is not mine, but I heard it, and I hope it helps you. That afternoon in class, there was an awkward silence. It wasn't one of those awkward silences, but it wasn't a quiet one either. I was never one to stand out in school. I used to spend my days with friends and sometimes drawing in my notebooks. Like everyone else, I heard a lot of teacher stories, each one with their tales, their anecdotes that they used to share with us. But that afternoon was different. Mr. Marquez stood in front of the blackboard. We all knew he was serious and rarely talked about his personal life. His classes were straightforward, without jokes or banter. So when he started talking about his brother and Oaxaca, everyone in the room paid attention. I remember that initially, I was distracted by watching the wind move the branches of the trees outside. However, as soon as he mentioned his military brother and that small city of Oaxaca, something in me changed. My posture went from relaxed to completely attentive, almost on the edge of my seat. The teacher told us that his brother, whom we will call Eduardo for privacy, had been sent to Oaxaca with the army. It was not out of the ordinary, Sometimes the army conducted routine operations in different parts of the country. But while they were in one of those small towns, they encountered something unusual. An old man. But not an ordinary old man, but one who was shouting at the top of his lungs in the middle of the main square. Disheveled, with old clothes and an expression of despair, the old man wore around his neck a necklace that upon closer inspection was made of human teeth. That image was engraved in my mind, that of an old man with teary eyes proudly and desperately holding that necklace. He said those teeth belonged to his ancestors, the Mayan warriors, and that he carried them with him to invoke their spirits when the land was in danger. The soldiers made fun of him when they heard that and thought he was a typical downtown nutcase. It was to be expected, wasn't it? Typical young soldiers, full of testosterone and looking for ways to entertain themselves in a town where, apparently, nothing happens. So when they saw the old man with his tooth necklace, it was like giving a toy to a child. They teased him, pushed him, and one, the most daring of the group, tried to rip the necklace off his neck. Now, one would think that an old man, in that situation, would cry or beg for mercy. But not this old man. With a look that Professor Marquez described as a combination of fury and infinite sadness, he gave them a warning that, truth be told, would have made me run away. He told them that they were playing with forces they could not begin to understand. He told them about their ancestors, Mayan warriors, who protected those lands, and that they were not going to let some disrespectful and arrogant young people desecrate their memory. Eduardo, our teacher's brother, was not the type to get into trouble. Rather, he was the quiet, observant type. So instead of joining in the taunts, he tried to calm his classmates down, tried to interpose himself. But the damage was already done. It wasn't long before strange things started happening. A couple of weeks after the incident, one of the soldiers who had taunted the old man had an accident. One night, while on patrol, he tripped and fell down a ravine. You could call it an accident, a misstep, but it didn't stop there. Another of the soldiers, after a few days, had an accident with a military vehicle. I won't go into details because the teacher wasn't very explicit, but the thing is that he was crushed and didn't survive. The third one, well, his story is the one that really left me speechless. One night, his campmates heard him screaming. Not a normal scream, but one of those screams that makes your blood run cold. He said he saw Mayan warriors surrounding his bed, looking at him with accusing eyes. When his companions arrived, they saw no one, but the poor man was pale, sweating, and his eyes were wild. The next day, they found him dead in his bed. Without a wound, without marks. Just that expression of terror on his face that I imagine will never go away. Nothing has happened to the teacher's brother yet, but he thinks that at some point he will also suffer a similar fate. But who knows? Time will tell. That's all. Best regards, Herr.
Lights in the forest.
Hello, anonymous please. I experienced this story firsthand when I was with the army in Chihuahua. The Sierra Tarahumara is an impressive place for its nature, but if you get into its deepest parts, you realize that not everything is so beautiful. I had heard stories of narcos hiding in the Sierra, army operatives, and so on, but what I didn't expect was to come across things that went beyond logic and reason. It was 2013, and we were patrolling an area known to be a drug trafficking corridor. Everything was going smoothly until we started to see lights in the trees. They looked like flashlights, moving fast, but the strange thing was that they were moving in zigzag and at an incredible speed. Some said they were narcos spying on us, others that they were hunters, but I, who had grown up in the countryside, knew that no human could move like that in such difficult terrain. One night, we decided to split into groups and follow those lights. We thought we might come across a camp or something, but nothing. No matter how much we followed the lights, they always ended up disappearing, and when we thought we were close, it turned out that we had been diverted and were in a totally different place. But what really scared us wasn't the lights. It was the screams. One night, while we were camping, we started hearing scary sounds coming from the forest. They weren't human screams, they were something much more primal, more savage. At first, we thought they were animals, but then they began to mix with low laughter and whispers. Some said they heard words in Raramuri, the language of the Tarahumara. I didn't understand anything, but the fear in my companion's eyes told me they weren't joking. That night, no one slept. We were all on alert, weapons at the ready, waiting for something to come out of the darkness. But nothing happened. The next day, we decided to investigate. We went deeper into the forest, following the direction of the screams. We came to a kind of clearing, and there we found something that left us frozen. On the ground, there was a kind of circle made of stones, and in the center, there were personal objects, photographs, clothes, even a military boot. Everything was arranged in a kind of altar. Around the circle, there were footprints that seemed to be animal tracks, but they were larger than normal. We quickly gathered everything and returned to the camp. We decided not to say anything, but we all knew something strange was going on. That night, while we were all trying to sleep, one of my companions suddenly got up and started walking towards the forest, as if in a trance. We tried to stop him, but he didn't react. Finally, several of us held him down and tied him to a tree. For hours, he screamed and cried, asking us to let him go, that he had to go with them. At dawn, everything had passed. My partner didn't remember anything and seemed fine, but we all decided it was time to leave that place. We never knew what was going on in that part of the Sierra Tarahumara. Some say it is a sacred place for the Tarahumara and that the spirits of their ancient warriors protect the place. Others say they are narcos performing Santeria rituals. I don't know what to believe, I just know that I will never go back there. Now I work in a grocery store in my town. Life is quiet and I don't miss the army at all. But sometimes, when I close my eyes, I can still hear those screams coming from the mountains, and I wonder what would have become of me if I had followed those lights that night.